Well, God's always at work, so are the forces of evil. And as we sat down to do the show, two stories broke. One, I guess, broke yesterday. God warned us about having human kings, and one of the human mini kings has decided to resign, Chris Wray, the FBI. I wonder what the method was to get him to resign. I don't think he did it for God and country. But then again, I could be wrong. Maybe the Lord has called him to have some form of humility. Then this. The people who run Joe Biden have caused him to issue the commutation of 1,500 jail sentences and has granted pardons to 39 other people. And there's sort of an interesting detail in this. It has to do with the COVID flu. We'll talk about this with the help of God Almighty, without whom we can do nothing.
The Todd Herman Show is 100% disapproved by big pharma, technocrats, and tyrants everywhere. No. From the high mountains of free America, here's the Emerald City exile, Todd Herman.
Today is the day the Lord has made, and these are the times through which God has decided we shall live. It was just days earlier that Kristen Welker was nearly crying as she was trying to get President Trump to say he would not fire Chris Wray. Then there was a coordinated effort to issue a lie, and that is that FBI directors have a 10-year term. They don't have a 10-year term. Their term is to not exceed 10 years. It's not a guaranteed 10-year job. And President Trump was pretty clear, I think, to Kristen Welker, saying to her, well, he didn't say the words, but the effective meaning of his statement was, are you kidding me? You think I'm going to keep this guy around? And if you look at the Chris Wray tenure, this is going to be, of course, disappeared as he becomes either a Fox News spokesperson or talking head. And don't discount that. I think that's probably a pretty good shot that he ends over at Fox News instead of MSNBC or CNN. He's going somewhere, don't you think? Maybe he'll be the one guy that doesn't do that. But if you look at the scandals during the time of Chris Wray, which one's worse? I mean, we've got the raid on President Trump's home in Mar-a-Lago. They never raided figurehead Biden, and there is absolutely no comparison between the two cases. President Trump had the ability to declassify anything. That's one of the weird natures of being the president. You get to do that. Joe Biden didn't. Not as VP, not as senator. He stole those documents and had no ability to say that he declassified them because he couldn't do that. Furthermore, his documents were stored in multiple places. One of them, a building that contained one of the elements of the Chinese Communist Party, another his garage with his prized Corvette, in and out of which his son, who is an unregistered foreign agent for multiple foreign governments, including China, traipsed in and out. He's now, of course, been pardoned. Or is it the chasing down of Catholics? Because it was under Christopher Wray's tenure at the FBI, where they made the decision that Catholics are very, very dangerous people and must be chased down to the corners of society. Not just any Catholics, strict Catholics. In other words, Catholics who actually believe the doctrine and the Bible. They're dangerous. Maybe it's that. For my betting, it's this, that Chris Wray helped perpetuate a culture at the FBI that communicated that it's the American people who are, in fact, the enemy. Because the FBI used its tools of division to rig elections. Chris Wray was there during that, not running things necessarily, but there. And in the aftermath, he didn't say anything about this. They also rigged local elections with force and intimidation. When you as a parent are put on notice that when you speak to your betters at a school board meeting, if one of your betters tells you that you need to shut up, to shut your speaking hole, and you don't, and one of your betters, an elected official in a school board, says, get out, and you say this is a public meeting, boom, you're trespassed. Boom, domestic terrorist. That happened under Christopher Wray. And we could go through the many other circumstances with Chris Wray. We can go through the buffoonery, which I think is purposeful. We can go through the statement of the shooter was on the radar of the FBI. They're always on the radar, it seems, except for an instance with a guy who allegedly shot United so-called healthcare CEO. So Chris Wray steps down. What caused it? I think it was probably a meeting with Team Trump, maybe a discussion with Kash Patel. Maybe Kash Patel had a quiet conversation with Chris saying, you can be a source, but not the target. I do believe Kash Patel, if he's confirmed as FBI director, I hope, I pray he's going to open up all the secrets. Don't you? It's absurd that the Kennedy files are closed. It's absurd that we don't have the Epstein client list. These things are closed investigations now, in the case of Kennedy, of course, forever. There's so much more he should open up. It'd be interesting to see where Chris Wray lands, but now at least the Mockingbird media doesn't get to have conniption fits about Trump firing him. A move the figurehead made, we'll talk about that, and then, AOC, she cooked up a plan to make the subways safer by making sure certain sorts of human beings don't get on the subways. So we'll talk about AOC and her brilliant plan. Had a fun conversation yesterday with a friend who runs a company we've now been doing business with for almost 4 years. I guess it's going on 4 years. Our friends at Bioptimizers. I had a conversation with Wade, who's one of the co-CEOs there. And I got to see the look on his face as he talked about having his first child. He's a late starter. He's in his mid-50s. They had their first child. And if you watch the podcast, we'll have him on. Wait until you see why they named his son what they named him. But he also told me this, and it happened during conversation. We were just chatting. They gave their baby Masszymes and P3OM. These are Bioptimizers products. Now, people are going, wait. They gave a baby supplements? Yeah. I have friends who do this. I have friends whose kids are on peptides and whey proteins in the right amounts. This is a big thing in the fitness community. They did this because the baby was having problems digesting food, and it worked. Apparently, he's voracious in his eating. Now, this should say something to you about Wade and Bioptimizers. Matt and Wade have always used their products, always. I mean, that's how the company began. Right now, they're really trying to help people have a far less stressful holidays because it is stressful for a lot of people. It is. So Magnesium Breakthrough, in addition to helping people sleep, helps reduce stress by controlling the stress hormone cortisol. Lower cortisol, lower stress. By the way, during the holidays, if you're a person who eats a little bit more than you normally do, stress, that cortisol hormone, will cause your body to store fat it wouldn't normally store. So do this. Opt to try to have a stress-free holiday. Go to bioptimizers.com/Todd. Use promo code Todd to get an additional 10% off. That's bioptimizers.com/Todd. Look, if Wade's willing to use it with his newborn, of course, he fully endorses his advice. Bioptimizers.com/Todd, promo code Todd. So the people who run figurehead Biden have issued the probably biggest single-day release from jail grants of clemency in history. This according to Fox News. 1,500 jail sentences. He's granted pardons to 39 people. Now, eventually, of course, we're going to get the names, but listen to the reasoning. The people that the figurehead has been caused to pardon are people who were sent home during these were prisoners who got to go home. Now, according to the people who run Joe Biden, who have talked about this and issued some statements on this, all of these people successfully reintegrated into society. Do you believe that? One of the challenges of a government that cannot be believed is you have to look at something like this and say, why would we possibly believe you that these people reintegrated into society successfully? So bit by bit, the names will come out. Bit by bit, we'll find people who haven't done the least bit of reintegration. We're probably going to see people who've been convicted of subsequent crimes in this. And the people who run Joe Biden caused him to say he has a lot more clemency to grant. Just do a side-by-side comparison. Are people whose businesses were destroyed during COVID lockdowns, are they going to get their businesses back? Are people who were told they could no longer barber going to get their businesses back? Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. The retired Marine in the separate country of Washington who had that happen to him, he died. So he has the full clemency of living with the Lord Jesus, but he never did get his barbering business back. Would it shock you if people and elements of the left, with a Republican president coming into office, are starting to light back up race-based street theater? Would that shock you? I was wondering when this would happen. I'm wondering what Inauguration Day is going to be like. Now, I've been watching Nancy Pelosi feverishly begging for the National Guard to come into Washington, D.C. to guard the White House with fences. I've been feverishly watching Mitch McConnell, who is absolutely dying. Did you see? He fell. He's now got a bandage wrapped around his head. He's being wheeled around in a wheelchair. It's not funny. I'm not mocking him. I'm simply pointing out the fact that that man is not capable of being a United States senator. So his staff is running him around. But I haven't seen any statements from his office saying we need extra security at the Capitol for the inauguration. So what's that going to be like in that day? Maybe as a precursor, maybe as a test run, some of the elements of the Black Lives Matter Incorporated type folks had a little bit of a test run of something in New York City. And it's around the life of the guy named Jordan Neely. There's a lot to this. And there's just some societal things to this and some cultural things to this. There's also a bright light in this. That race card has truly expired. It no longer works to purchase favors. The Democrat Party has burned that down. The Mockingbird media has burned that down. But you know what assisted in that? Social media. There's a huge downside to the internet and social media in relation to culture and the safety of kids, in that people who don't mean kids well can meet up and can communicate and organize. The left can do that, but there's something else. We used to talk about on the radio show from time to time the illusion of control. Remember that? That in a nation of 330 million people, if 100 million of us decided to go to Washington, D.C. with guns, what's exactly going to stop us? If 100 million of us, even partially well-led, walked into town with guns and said, okay, get out, how do you stop 100 million people? Or 10 million? See, the illusion of control is just that. It's an illusion. But there's something else, and the left is so good at this. It's the illusion of inevitability. The illusion of unanimity. All black people like Democrats. All black people think Republicans are racist. All black people are always going to vote Democrat. The illusion of inevitability, the illusion of unanimity. It's unanimous. Social media has blown that apart. It's one of the good things about this invention. I'll show you this race riot here in a second, or at least the attempt to get a race riot. I also had a conversation yesterday with my friend Zach Abraham, Chief Investment Officer, Bulwark Capital Management, and he has a warning for you. This is coming up on Friday. It's gonna drop on Friday, the episode. He has a warning for you about a company that's built itself up into an entity that owns about $41 billion worth of Bitcoin. Okay, it's soon to own about $82 billion worth of Bitcoin. And retail investors are pouring money into this. Now, just think of the mechanism of this company. You're loaning them money. They've structured this as a loan. There is zero interest rate loan. You don't get any interest payments on it at all. If the company chooses to, it can take your loan and convert it to equity. So you own a percentage of the company. What does the company own? They don't even really own the Bitcoins. They're renting them. People are investing money in the way of zero interest rate loans into a company that is renting Bitcoins in the tune of $41 billion. So you get a percentage of the company, meaning you get a percentage of these rented Bitcoins. And this company's become so popular that more and more people are buying in, meaning your ownership percentage shrinks every single day. And it's a rock star company. Now, regulators are curious about it. What they're doing is legal, but think of how easy it would be just to go buy a Bitcoin that you could actually own. Why am I explaining this to you? Because this guy who's running this company has apparently looked into Social Security. He's apparently looked into Medicare and Medicaid and seen that effectively pyramid schemes are legal. Eventually, math is going to come for him and the investors, and people are going to have a rude awakening. Eventually, math is going to come for those retirement accounts and those entitlement accounts. Where will your retirement account be when that happens? Find out. My friend Zach Abraham, Chief Investment Officer of Bulwark Capital Management, will do a free phone call with you, a free video meeting with you. You can even go see him in person out in Western Washington. He'll look at all your portfolios. He'll look at your home equity. He'll look at your paychecks, and he'll tell you if you are going to be able to retire based on what you have now, if not when. And what does retirement mean to Zach? It means this. You know exactly how much money you're going to have every month for the rest of your life. That's what it means to him. He does this through a zealous focus on risk management, which he accomplishes through something that can reduce risk and volatility, which is the active management of every single portfolio. So just get in touch with him. Ask for a free, no obligation consultation. It's knowyourriskradio.com. That's KNOW, knowyourriskradio.com, or call him at 866-779-RISK. That's 866-779-RISK. Investment advisory services offered through Truck Financial LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Investments involve risk and are not guaranteed. Past performance doesn't guarantee future results. Truck 24-378. And thank you to the federal government. Now everybody is well warned. The race riots. Are you surprised that there are entities that want this to make a comeback? Remember the Time magazine article where they bragged about saving democracy, they called it, by rigging an election? They bragged about it. The lock boxes, etc. There was a key sentence in there. And the key sentence was this in the Time magazine article, that they had on speed dial organizations like Black Lives Matter Incorporated and Antifa ready to go back with more kinetic action, ready to go out and burn down more buildings and threaten more people. All they needed to do was to call them down. In other words, stand by and stand ready. Isn't that what President Trump was accused of saying? Stand by and stand ready. So they're beginning to bring the band back together. This is about the death of Jordan Neely, who Daniel Penny did not. I mean, yes, he's been exonerated. But Jordan Neely was alive for 45 minutes after Daniel Penny got done restraining him with the help of a black man who helped Daniel Penny do that. It was after that, 45 minutes later, that Jordan Neely died, having not been rendered medical aid by the NYPD. This was a scene in New York City.
What's his name? Jordan Neely! Say his name! Jordan Neely! What's his name? Jordan Neely! Say his name! No justice! No peace! These racist police! No justice! No peace! No justice! No peace! No justice! No peace! These racist police!
Our police forces, and throughout now, everyday civilians on the streets. Shame! 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 Daniel Penny should have been convicted for. That's right. Yeah. I will say it one more time. Daniel Penny should have been convicted for. Right. So
Oh, there's my mom. The wave at the end. Oh, hi, Mom. You must be so proud. Everybody there has a right to go out and do that. So the people with clipboards and databases who are gathering names of folks who will later be called upon maybe to go to Washington, D.C., maybe for free, maybe on free bus rides or free plane tickets. You remember Kenosha, Wisconsin, right? Do you remember the people who were chasing Kyle Rittenhouse around? Some of them had been flown in. Some of them had been paid to stay in decent, if not really nice, hotels. And then there's the bricks that arrive right on time, be available right there in the street corners, the pre-printed signs. What do we think Washington, D.C. is going to look like the day President Trump is inaugurated? Do you think they're heating it all back up? When you move to a community like we did, and you begin to notice these changes, there's this incredible thing that happens, particularly if you come from one of the separate countries. We came from the separate country of Seattle. One of the things that we've noticed right away is it's not uncommon for people to say to you the first time they meet you, hey, where do you worship? It's an interesting question because that never happens in the separate countries. Not one time living in Seattle did I ever have anyone say to me, where do you worship? Now, when I lived in Utah, and it was pretty evident I was not a Mormon, given the fact that at that time I had really long hair and a beard and earrings and motorcycle boots, etc. It's pretty clear I was not LDS. It wasn't uncommon for people to say to me, hey, have you ever taken the temple tour? Would you like to go with me? It was an invitation. I always appreciated it. I always did. I always said, hey, these people believe in this, and they believe it's salvation, so they're talking with me about it. Why am I making that point? Because there are societal norms. And in the case of what we're looking at in politics in America and what we're looking at with the attempt to make Jordan Neely the new George Floyd, and they'll probably find their George Floyd, and they'll blame President Trump because, of course, he's a vicious white supremacist. All the evidence shows that, of course. They'll find their George Floyd. But they're going to have this harder time. Because if it's not Blue Sky or YouTube or Facebook, it's Twitter. And Twitter has been a place where that illusion of unanimity is burst, where black people can see other black people who are going to vote for President Trump or who did vote for him. Black people who are standing up to say, wait a minute, what did race have to do with Daniel Penny and Jordan Neely? And when that happens, that illusion of unanimity is gone. And then like kinds find like kinds. Black conservatives find black conservatives. This is probably one of the key elements into why the party hates Elon Musk. Now, Musk is not a perfect character. One day we'll need to talk about the fact that he fully intends to see human beings made into computers. He's a transhumanist. Don't think he just wants to do this for people who've been paralyzed. He wants a microchip in your brain too. So let's not get into the worshiping Elon Musk thing. I mean, he may well be the Antichrist. Oh, you thought I was kidding? No, he may well be someone who comes and says, oh, I can bring people back to life. Oh, I know. He's flirted around with Jesus was a great fella and such. But Jesus was not a great fella. I mean, he was great. He is, but he's also God, the Messiah, the only one. So in Twitter, on Elon Musk's Twitter, guys like this can find us, and they can find people like him. This is a black man who says the most interesting thing about the Jordan Neely affair.
We need some black vigilantes.
No, we don't.
People want to jump up and choke us and kill us for being loud. How about we do the same when they attempt to oppress us?
Right.
I'm tired.
Notice it seems like a huge part of what he is saying is about skin color. They want to jump up, who's they, and they want to choke us. Who is us? They is this color, us is this color. I can't believe some of us take this serious. This is not a racial issue. There was more than one race of people helping to restrain him. The reason this happened is because a man came on the subway was acting menacing, loud, and threatening to the people on the subway to the point where some of them felt they needed to take matters into their own hands to protect themselves and the people around them. The man that was acting threatening happened to be this color. The main individual restraining him happened to be this color. But that doesn't mean this is about race. And us making this about race does nothing but cause division. They didn't get up and choke us. We weren't on the train threatening and scaring people. They did that to him because he was acting a certain way. And there's no reason for me to get offended on that simply because I had the same skin color as that guy. This is what I'm saying. We have this unrelenting loyalty to being black, and we root everything in our skin color. So many of us. And it's not a beneficial mindset. It really makes you look dumb in many cases because logic and reason go out the window when you have this unrelenting loyalty to being black.
There's an effort, and it's a really, really well done effort to keep people focused, to keep people locked in the first two stages of trauma mind. So I'll explain what that means. But when you keep people locked in the first two stages of trauma mind or crisis mind, they cannot get across into a place mentally where they can hear logic, where they can think logically, because they're trapped in emergency self-preservation methods. They're ineffective methods, but just a study of the human brain lets you know that there are people who are trapped into this, and people like the commentators at PBS want people there. Hey, it's a hard thing. It takes the wisdom of God, I think, to help people cross this barrier. So I want to talk about that, this brain structure that we'll get to PBS, who's well down the road of trying to traumatize people permanently, so they're permanently in lizard brain. There's a guy who has a really gifted brain, and God gifted him with the heart of a healer and the mind of a scientist. His name is Patrick Gentempo, and he's a doctor. He does a podcast. It's a very interesting podcast. And Dr. Gentempo had been in the Holy Land, and he's a Christian, obviously a confessing Christian. And as he went through the Holy Land, he was just thinking about the smells, the scents, the fragrances. I've talked to people back there, and I've had friends of mine who are herb farmers and spice farmers. In fact, I had some family members who did this, and I used to go to their warehouse. It was just this phenomenal series of fragrances. So Dr. Gentempo experienced this, and then he began reading the Holy Word and seeing how many times the spices and herbs are given almost sacred treatment in the sacred text. I mean, you think about King David, wash me with hyssop and I will be clean as snow. Remember that? So he started to think about how could he harness all the healing powers that are within these herbs in a way that was completely potent, biblical, and science-backed. So he created this product called Wisdom. And it comes in these little squeeze bottles. Now, the first time I tried this, it was before we'd ever thought about reaching out to them to come on the program. And I was blown away by how good it tastes, but then the benefits. This stuff is cold brewed in small batches. It's light wave and sound wave infused, which helps lock in the potency. I tasted that right away. It's the benefits, immune benefits, harnessing inflammation so that you control it and use it for your benefit, joint health, relaxation, focus, mental clarity. And it all comes in a drop. My daughter's in her early 20s. She uses it in her coffee, so she still gets the coffee boost, but she doesn't get the jagged edge. So you can try this now, and you can get a great deal on this. Go to trywisdomnow.com/Todd. You'll get 33% off when you stock up on Wisdom. That's trywisdomnow.com/Todd. You'll also get free shipping, and at trywisdomnow.com, you get a 180-day money-back guarantee. So that's trywisdomnow.com/Todd. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. This is partly because God made our minds. Well, he made our minds, but our brains. Our minds within our brains, well, mind and brain are different things, but our mind within our brains function in the following way when we're in crisis. In order for human beings to be helpful to someone in crisis, you have to help the person who is in crisis feel, number one, seen, number two, heard, number three, understood, number four, they have to have a sense that you're delighted to be there helping them, and number five, you are offering them a combined bigger brain to solve a problem, or if you're looking at this from a Christian point of view, bringing in the biggest brain of all, that's God's. If people do not get above those first two levels, feeling seen and feeling heard, they cannot then feel understood. And until they feel understood, they can't hear logic. So if someone comes to you in crisis and they're saying, this is it, my life is over. Like your teen is coming to you, they're in a breakup, my life is over, there's no reason for me to keep living. I'm 15, I know this was the person for me, now my life is over. If you say to them, oh, that's silly, your life's not over, he wasn't even that great, you're not helping. It might be true. The boyfriend might have been a flat scumbag, but you're not helping your daughter. Help is, I can see that you're super upset. And I'm hearing from you, it seems to me what I'm hearing from you is that you seem almost terrified of the future. And your daughter might say to you, well, I don't know that I'm terrified. I'm really mad. I'm upset. I'm worried. Okay. So it sounds like probably the biggest worry you've ever had. And your daughter might say, yeah, it's the biggest worry I've ever had. Well, that's huge. That's really hard to carry. That's helping them feel understood. Once they feel understood, you can begin to bring logic to the situation, such as this. Hey, were you ever happy before you met him? Sure, yeah, I had happy times before I met him. Okay. All right. Maybe it's possible you could be happy after you heal from this. Maybe that's possible. Why am I going down this rabbit hole? Because it's the job of racial agitators to tell people that they're part of a group that is not seen and not understood. First thing they do is they put them in a group with the least meaningful factor about them, their skin color. They're not talking about race. Race is interesting. Race is complex. It contains elements of culture, of religion, music, art, family structure, philosophy, governing ideas, traditions, family, and otherwise. Race is interesting. They're not talking about race, they're talking about skin color. So they can put you in a group. Then they tell the group, and just think of any group, so-called trans people, they want to disappear you. They don't think you exist. They don't hear you. No justice, no peace. People like us, they're choking us. They're choking us to keep us quiet. Putting you in a group, telling you you're not seen, you're about to be extinguished, putting you in trauma mind so that you can't look at the logic. What actually happened on that train? A well-known street person who most people would have seen because he frequented the same areas said, I'm willing to kill everybody on this train. I know this. If I was in the presence of someone saying that, and I was with my daughter, and we were locked in a tin can, which is what a subway car is, I would say to my daughter, get behind me. And if that person made a move towards my daughter, I would stand up and approach him and say, don't go near her. And I would do a physical assessment as the guy's walking around. I'd be looking for weapons. I'd be looking at physical capabilities. I'd be planning a line of attack. Is this a guy I just take down? Is this a guy I wrestle? Is this a guy I hit? Is this a guy I let himself burn himself out in 45 seconds of wild punches? I have a plan because I'm trapped in a tin can. None of those plans would be, how do I kill the guy? But it's the job of PBS to keep people in trauma mind, to keep them in that state where you're not heard, you're not seen. So they're playing this up as some form of vigilantism that went too far. Remember, you're paying for this.
Penny is a former Marine who happens to be white. Neely was a homeless Black man with a history of mental health hospitalization and a traumatic childhood. Samantha, how did the histories and identities of these two men add to the weightiness of this trial and the ways in which it was politicized nationally?
I mean, I think it just really added a lot of layers. On Neely's side, you know, this was coming at a time when there was a huge debate already happening in the city about mental illness and homelessness, especially after the pandemic. And so many people who are struggling with mental illness or who are unhoused have really been in the subway system very visibly. And then on the other hand, you have Daniel Penny, who's a former Marine, and he really went into the spotlight in his own way. There was a legal defense fund that was set up that garnered more than $3 million in donations. You had big conservative names like Vivek Ramaswamy joining into his defense. And also both of his defense attorneys are former military. So it really became just this very political case on both sides.
Following up on that, Samantha, after the verdict was read, there were reportedly some cheers in the courtroom, and there had been some anger when Daniel Penny was charged. Is there a sense of vindication among his supporters? And on the flip side, for Penny's critics who said it was vigilantism run amok, is there concern that this verdict leads to more of that kind of thing?
Gosh, I wonder what she said. Vigilantism. What does that mean? Vigilantism means something. It means a group of people says, you know what, the cops aren't getting it done. Let's team up together. We'll become our own undeputized police force and go take care of business. That's vigilantism. And it might be that we go break doors down, kick in doors, kick in teeth. That's vigilantism because there's no limits on it. Daniel Penny didn't do any of that. But it's PBS's job to keep people in that trauma mind so that they don't get to the point of feeling understood and therefore can hear logic. And that's part of our job, and it's a real challenge. No one speaks logic like AOC. Or Taylor Lorenz, speaking of trauma mind. They also have thoughts on the Jordan Neely circumstance. AOC with a airtight plan to keep the subways absolutely safe. What is the date? My new watches, or the way of program I watch makes it difficult to read. You still have time. I think you still have time to get to alansoaps.com/Todd. By the way, if this slipped your mind, if you're going, I've got to do this, you do. And if you don't, what's wrong with you? What is some kind of vigilante? You're a white supremacist? What are you, a racist? Alan Soaps is the place where you make a trade. Here's the trade. You go from a well-known brand of soap that you've used forever, and if I went to you and said, why do you use that soap? You'd say, because that's the soap I use. Does the company care about your values? Almost certainly not. What's in your soap? I don't know. Is it made in America? No. Does it involve slave labor from China? Maybe. Does that company give money to DEI causes and things that are harming our country? Probably. So you can swap for this. Alan Soaps is made in America. It is all natural, no chemicals. The family responsible for making it has done this for 3 straight generations. The fragrances are invented by a young guy named Alan, who's 13. He's been through about 18 operations, and the rest of the world would say he's a useless eater. Sorry, that's what they'd say. And by the way, his dad, John, is a great, great supporter of the program, is probably listening to this. It was the medical authorities who said to John and his wife, hey, let us kill that baby. He's just going to be a useless eater. And they refused. The company exists to market fantastic soap to you and more so to employ Alan and other people. So now it's Alan and it's Amy and it's Ian. You have been responsible for a 300% increase in employing people the rest of the world says are useless eaters. To us, all lives matter. So make the switch. Oh, that's right. I got to do that. Why don't you do it right now? Before you forget. Do it as you listen. Go to alansoaps.com/Todd. That's alansoaps.com/Todd. You get 10% off everything there, which is the least of things. You'll also be proving that all lives matter and make a great Christmas gift. alansoaps.com/Todd. No one speaks logic like the perpetually trauma-mined AOC.
He said that he would do it again if necessary.
Talk about Daniel Penny. Daniel Penny saying, yes, if someone was threatening to kill people on a train, yes, I would put myself in harm's way again.
There was a present threat. What do you make of the comments?
Well, doesn't that, I just feel like that tells us everything. If we do not want violence on our subways, and the point of our justice system is a level of accountability to prevent a person who does not have remorse about taking another person's life. I mean, even people who have engaged in or have taken a life accidentally express remorse. And so the fact that a person may express no remorse indicates that there's a risk that it may happen again. And if we do not want to unleash that level of violence, then we should exert a level of accountability to prevent that from happening again.
Cute as a bug in a rug, ain't she? So here's the deal. Gosh, that's a cliche. Here's the deal. She is cute as a bug in a rug. Let's admit it. Isn't she? You think I'm wrong, Alex? She's cute as a bug in a rug. She's photogenic. That's why she was recruited. You know that she was recruited to run for Congress based on how she looks, right? And how she is on camera. That's why she was recruited. Number one, she backs terrorist groups. Organized international vigilantism. Hey, let's go blow up civilians because we don't like their government. She backs that. She backs the Hamas that runs the Palestinian territory. What do? Hey, let's capture people after we put their families and bash in heads on camera and brag about it on a live stream. Then let's take some of their family members and lock them in a cave for a year and a half with no light. She backs that. She also has no problem keeping people in trauma mind. Do you remember her great pretenses of the past, the great AOC performances? The award-winning, Grammy award-winning, I'm crying outside of the so-called migrant cages. Remember that? And her beautiful, beautiful all-white outfit. And then when you pan back, it was actually the parking lot. It wasn't the cages. One of her photogs said, hey, we didn't get a good propo shot of you in tears. Can we get a propo shot of you really crying it up, AOC, in a real photogenic sense? And so she did. Or this. She was going to die during Jan 6. They were coming for her. They were going to kill her. Remember that? Except she wasn't in the building. Not the one where the protesters were or even the rioters, because there were a few rioters. Some of her many pretenses. It's difficult to know if Taylor Lorenz is acting. This is a woman who refuses to disclose her age. She'd worked for the Washington Post. Then she'd worked, I think, for Vox. She just got fired again. For good reason. Here she is on with Piers Morgan after Taylor Lorenz, who, remember, had tried to cancel Libs of TikTok when she said that Shia was a domestic terrorist and she was making life dangerous for so-called trans kids. Remember that? In fact, I think it was Taylor Lorenz who succeeded in working with another person who was a former Intel op to finally unmask Shia. I think that was Taylor. Taylor Lorenz had said that she can understand, or basically said, see why we want insurance company CEOs? See? So Piers Morgan had her on his program.
Why would you be in such a celebratory mood about the of another human being? Aren't you supposed to be on the caring, sharing left where, you believe in the sanctity of life?
I do believe in the sanctity of life. And I think that's why I felt, along with so many other Americans, joy, unfortunately, because it feels like...
Serious?
I mean...
Joy in a man?
Maybe not joy, but certainly not empathy.
Certainly not empathy, but maybe joy that a human being was on the streets. Look, I've made my utter disdain for the company called United Healthcare, which is a funny joke because they have nothing to do with healthcare. They have to do with preventing it and lobbying and becoming a company you're forced to support through tax dollars, etc. But of course, it doesn't equal murdering their CEO. He didn't think it was any of those things. He's a guy who wasn't supposed to be a CEO. I mean, given his background, he made it into the elite. He might have been a fantastic guy outside of the fact that he ran a corrupt company. But Taylor Lorenz speaking that way was kind of joyful. She's at least out of a job for now. I don't know that she'll get to go the Tucker Carlson route and make more money as an independent. Maybe she will. Maybe on Blue Sky they're going to have subscriptions. But then there's the UPenn professor. Her name is Julia Alexeyeva. And she decided to go on TikTok, and we can't play the music because it's copyrighted. But she decided to go on TikTok and show her glee, her enthusiasm that the suspected killer of the United so-called healthcare CEO went to Penn. Now, she's since retracted this and said that she said some very, very insensitive things. And she's deeply, 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 so deeply sorry. She's super, super sorry, you guys, so sorry that she decided to make this and edit it and approve it and post it. But she's super sorry. Here's part of the video. If you're not on the video service, you're listening on audio, just to give you the scene. She happens to have short, black, although mostly now blue hair. Never have been prouder to be a professor at the University of Pennsylvania. She has on the screen as music from a well-known musical is playing in the background, and she's touching her heart, and she has a satisfied grin on her face. She's so proud that a former student, I don't know that she necessarily directly so-called taught him, that a former student, man, on the streets of New York City, never been prouder. Proud. That is an emotion that God loathes in human beings, like the pride of Chris Wray. Taking an institution like the FBI and using it to lord his power over others. Making the FBI at the tip top, not with all the agents in the street who do put their lives at risk, but at the very tip top, a scandalously lie-based organization. Or figurehead Biden. With the swipe of an auto pen, 1,500 people have had their jail sentences commuted because they looked deeply into all of their activities, right? Or the pride of keeping people in trauma mind, never letting them heal. I mean, it was Saul Alinsky who said, keep your opponent down, never let him up, never let him strategize. His opponent isn't just conservatives. It's people who want peace. Because remember, Saul Alinsky was an adherent of the first ever politician, Lucifer, or Saul Alinsky called him. A community organizer so good at his job, he got his own planet. This is the Todd Herman Show. Please go be well, be strong, be kind, and please make every effort to walk in the light of Christ.